Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Izzy Cinema Escape. I'm your host Izzy. Today's review is based off one of my favorite films of all time, a childhood classic if I say so by myself. Was released in 1991, directed by Steven Spielberg. It is Hook, starring Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, Julia Roberts, and Bob Hoskins. It is a sequel to the J.M. Barrie story of Peter and Wendy, known as Peter and Wendy, and it follows the mythology of Peter Pan, who has left Neverland and became an adult, got married, and had children in the process. In the film, he is a very unimaginative workaholic lawyer who has, by all intents and purposes, has become very bitter, resentful, just very much focused and in tune with what he does for a living. And by all accounts, he has essentially forgotten who he was in the past. And that develops a lot of resentment from his children and even his wife as well, because he has allowed himself to be not necessarily become so consumed by his childhood, but he has forgotten all about it. And he's thrust back into action when the enemy from a very iconic, familiar enemy from his past, Captain Hook, decides to kidnap his children. He has to return to Neverland and reclaim that magic in order to combat the ever elusive and the iconic and flamboyant and over-the-top Captain Hook, portrayed by Dustin Hoffman. One of the main reasons why I truly love this film, and I've always been very fascinated with the whole concept of Peter Pan as the idea of wonderment, magic, and eternity, and never growing up and never growing old. It's always been something that's resonated with me, very similar to Michael Jackson. It's such a beautiful concept that I think is very important that it maintains that sense of true sincerity to it, because we all have that inner child in us. Even though we start off as babies and children, teenagers, it is very important to maintain that true sense of innocence within ourselves, and that to me is the beautiful element of Hook. And that's what I really loved about this film, is the fact that for its simplicity, it captures that whole beauty that is necessary for this story of this magnitude. You have Robin Williams who portrays Peter Banning / Peter Pan, and he does an amazing job. I mean, Robin Williams has always been a talented actor and comedian. But in this film in particular, I love how he really truly captures the whole bitter and unimaginative and workaholic father who is ignoring not only his responsibilities at home, but ignoring his children in the process. And by him doing that, there is that growing sense of resentment that you experience from his children, who they're kids themselves, obviously, and they have embraced that inner magic within them. So it's hard for them to relate to him, and it's hard for him to relate to them to a certain extent. So that I really loved how they focus on that dynamic of their relationships. And then you have Julia Roberts, who portrays Tinkerbell, who does an amazing job as well. And she just really fully captures that whole that fairy, that beautiful fairy, magical fairy, who has to, for her purpose, she has to make Peter believe in himself again, believe in the magic, and believe that he has to do what he has to do in order to save his children after Captain Hook has kidnapped them and brought them to Neverland. One of my favorite moments of the film, actually, is something that I remember my mom used to always tell me, because she said it reminded me so much of her, is the scene that when he returns to Neverland and the Lost Boys are attempted to get him to reclaim what made him Peter Pan. They're trying to get him to inspire him. Inspire him that way that he can inspire them in the process. And there's a scene where one of the Lost Boys and I understand this came out in 1991, and this is going to be a spoiler, but I'm going to assume that everybody has already seen this film. So if you haven't, please do so. I will give you a few seconds to kind of step away. That way you can go ahead and do what you need to do. However, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. The scene is when he is on his knees, and one of the Lost Boys starts, maneuvering his face and pushing it back his face and messing with everything, messing with his hair. And when he pushes his face back, and that is how he remembered Peter from Neverland. And it's such a beautiful and emotional moment that I've always connected with that. And my mom said it always reminded her of me whenever that scene came up. So I really love how Neverland, how it's such an interesting dichotomy between the real world and Neverland, and how you have not only it was Peter Pan's children resentful to him, but then you had a lot of the every single Lost Boy who was more or less kind of resentful and bitter towards him in the process, because he had abandoned them. He had grown up, and in Neverland, obviously, you never grow up. whether it's physically and mentally. What I've always viewed as Peter Pan, as far as the mythological, magical element is concerned, is the fact that while physically we grow up, mentally we don't grow up. And I've always loved this film. It's such a beautiful concept. It's such a beautiful film, and I just love how when he finally does reclaim that sense of inner magic and the ability to fly, he does it. Robert Williams does it with so much amazing grace, if you will. He just does it with such amazing ease that you can't help but simply be enticed by the magic. And that's what Peter Pan is supposed to represent: the eternity and the magic of your childhood. And a film like this, I mean, we've had many Peter Pan adaptations throughout the years, whether it's Broadway animated features like in Walt Disney, or television series, or even feature films. I don't believe anything will ever reclaim what Steven Spielberg did with this film, simply because, as I mentioned, there's something special and magical about this story, that there's a reason why it is still highly revered amongst people like myself who grew up watching this on a daily basis. And even now, it's just, there's something very emotional and beautiful about this, that I've always felt and still believe to this very day that this is the definitive Peter Pan film by far. Dustin Hoffman as the iconic, flamboyant Captain Hook, an amazing job. I love how they incorporated his fear of clocks, and how it's just an amazing film, and with just wonderful performances all across the board. Everything is seemingly so realistic, and how it's really a representation of how everything should be when it comes to a film. It's all about escapism. It's all about being able to attain the unattainable, if you will. And just seriously, one of the greatest films ever made. Iconic in every sense of the word. And I cannot recommend this film enough. It is great for children. It's great for families altogether. There's nothing horrific, violent, or there is some emotional moments in the film, and especially when it explores the idea, the very core reality of loss. But it's all about playing. It's all about magic. It's all about escapism. The scene where they're all sitting around the table in Neverland, and they're having to imagine all the wonderful food that they're eating, and you have Peter Pan, who he can't imagine whatever it is that they're enjoying, but he has to focus, and he has to attune, and he has to be able to find that ability to simply embrace what they're embracing. And that was another one of my favorite moments of the film, and also it tends to make me hungry whenever I see it too. So, but other than that, I mean, it just has everything that you could ever want, with great comedy, great acting, great music, a wonderful atmosphere, just wonderful set designs, beautiful, realistic costumes, just all across the board. Hook, one of the greatest films ever made. Nothing. I don't think anything will come close when it comes to a Peter Pan story. That is my review of Hook. 2 thumbs up, 5 out of 5. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. You will be hearing from me again, my friends. I hope you guys remain safe and healthy, and I'm not sure what my next review would be, but be on the lookout on my YouTube and on my Facebook. Please provide a like on my Facebook, and please provide a like on my YouTube and in my comments. Either way, take care, and peace out.